players dominate on so far. You get Fly back onto the Rise. You have Keen onto the Gangplank, which is extremely scary. We already saw what Dread was able to do with the Sejuani in game number 1. And it just fights really well into sort of, you know, heavy team fighting comps on the other side as well. You consider like Nongshim running straight into a Rise and a Cannon Barrage and a really nice kind of phalanx that you can set up with the Leona and the Sejuani. It's not going to be easy. I think there will be some pressure on Duck Dom, especially later on in the game, to do some carrying if Afri can do a good job of denying too many team fights.
There weren't a lot of great options, like top-tier options for support. The Thresh was banned away. You know, Braum was banned by Nongshim. So going for the Trundle here with Exhaust is another great alternative in this particular draft, but it doesn't feel very strong. It's not going to be the oppressive Trundle in lane where you have the Halo Blades, like I was talking about earlier, but it's pretty strong into Sejuani in general, as you were pointing out when it was first hovered.
And Leona.
And Leona, yeah. And it is going to be something that if Nongshim have a really nice engage, can kind of win more in those team fights. And if he starts to get ahead early or helps his team get ahead early, it is a draft that can steamroll a game. Just like last game, as long as you hold on to that lead.
Yeah. I think people just, in general, they realized how much utility Trundle has as a champion. And that's why we're, you know, there weren't too many changes as far as I can tell. But he just came right back into the meta. And I feel like Pillar is one of the best abilities in the game, as Keen is, of course, doing level 1 Gangplank things.
Yeah, the Pillar is so good.
Yeah, it allows you to have the flexibility to not only play him in the jungle, but also in the support role more often, especially with the tank support meta. It just makes sense in a lot of areas, and as you were saying, with all those support bans into the Leona and Sejuani, it ended up being the best choice.
Yeah, the thing about his kit is just so good regardless of items.
He's going for the kill. Not quite going to get it, but he gets a response flash. And you want to extend that level 1 on Gangplank as long as possible.
Oh, absolutely, and Rich is going to have to teleport back to lane. It's a really nice advantage to grab early on. Especially when you consider the style of play with Dread. You might pay a visit up there to the top lane, especially if Rich is aggressively trading. Which the positioning of Rich is part of why Keen was able to do a lot with this level 1. It's obviously partially due to the matchup, but Rich did kind of dash forward and Keen was in a brush, so couldn't actually hit him there. And then Keen ended up trading very nicely. These dashes forward sometimes can really cost you, actually, in fact, as Kennen. Dread, look for the steal here with Gory nearby. This is pretty risky.
This is an immediate response from Gory, as you can see. The Sejuani will dodge it, and Dread just laughs at them. Of course, Peanut was able to get the blue buff because of it, and it's not a huge commitment from Gory to just walk on over. He can catch this wave. But at the same time, you can see that they're trying to make use of the Ashe. They're trying to get in the face of the Diana.
He misses
out of the mindset.
He misses 2 minions and a Cannon. Cannon will be playing in the semifinals.
I miss Cannon.
I miss Canyon too. It's been a little while. But yeah, it ends up being really nice because Dread doesn't lose anything from this at all. It could just go straight back to his Raptors and he'll be totally fine. Walks on the ward and is pinged, but if this goes well for Dread and he gets the steal, he gets a massive lead. So you know, we talk about these types of plays all the time in the LCK, like low risk, high reward, and certainly an opportunity he looked for. As this is still looking great for Keen on the top side of the map. Did, of course, go back and buy his teleport used, so no longer having that advantage.
Kellen making his way all the way up to the mid lane alongside of Lehens and Dread. We're just saying hello. Bottom side, while the Aphelios was gone, you can just go for that. Leo here, he's soaking all of that XP up, though, and he's in a great spot. Both of these guys picking up their Vamp Scepter. This bottom lane probably shouldn't have too much action, you would imagine. The Trundle kind of shut things down from the Leona a lot of the time with the Pillar. Great at just denying engages, and so might just see a bit of pushing back and forth.
Yep, not to mention that, you know, Aphelios isn't really going to be able to be a playmaker himself early. Ashe's slow is going to make it a lot more difficult. A little bit of a Calibrum shot in there. Nothing too crazy, as you mentioned, and it's a very passive early game from these two teams outside of Keen's flash forward. And that's kind of what you expect. Both of these drafts have really different strengths in the late game. I think Afrika's is kind of apparent in terms of its safe, slow, extended team fight damage. The damage throughput is way higher, whereas Noshim is a little bit more reliant on those hard engages, their CC, and getting on top of the carries of Afrika.
Yeah. The other part of that invade from Dread is that it kind of sets up so much pressure for Keen as well. It keeps him incredibly safe. You have your jungler up on the top side. You're reading where the enemy jungler is. He has a control ward down, and it's just allowing him to abuse this top lane right now. Up a lot of CS already after getting the trade of flashes, which keeps him safe and again as well.
When Keen, you know, is putting that pressure on, he has that control ward, and then when Rich finally decides to go clear it, he's like, wait, we're just going to go ahead and take a Drake for free, because it's so easy to take that advantage and then know where Peanut is. And Peanut is, of course, trying to steal Krugs right now, but that's not going to be the same value. Well, that's the Drake, and he's looking for a play now.
Yep, no flash, but he should have his oranges. Doesn't look like he was able to use it. Trying to trade back, and he saves it, actually. The damage from the cannon barrage and the shot to Peanut means he has to back off. And now we have a Realm Warp coming in from Afrika. They want to punish this hardcore, and that they will. They get the one, and they should get the two here as Fly will have to run away, and they give the kill over to Keen's gangplank of everybody right after they got the Infernal Drake.
And Gory is going to be able to get a plate here, but that is really all that Noshim are going to be able to trade back out of this, and maybe a Rift Scuttle there as well going over to Kellen. But you have so much control over the game as Afrika right now because of the top matchup. And it's something we talked about from the beginning is Keen is the better laner. You give him a counter into this Kennen in the gangplank. Again, not necessarily a straight-up hard counter, but does play very well early on. And that early control he gets means that when resources are committed here, you get so much more on the map. They had already gotten the Drake, so Peanut felt desperate. Wasn't able to hit 6 off of the Krug, so isn't able to ult here. If he has his ult, he at least is able to kill Keen. But you're playing against a comp that can rotate so well, and I feel like we're seeing Noshim fall into the same traps this game as they did last, where, yeah, you commit up here, you look for a kill onto Keen, he plays it well, and then Realm Warp punishes you. This is not the first time we've seen this in this best of 5. And now, you know, Fed Gangplank early on, now he's got his Sheen. He's going to be very annoying to deal with here as Rich.
Yeah. And right now in the current League of Legends meta, the blue side is the best side, right? We're back to this, as it has been for many years. And it just makes you wonder, this is perfect for Afrika. I mean, you just give counterpick to Keen every single time? Sure. I mean, it sounds pretty good, right? And 2 times in a row now, we're going to see potentially Keen popping off in a huge way.
Control ward on this Rift Herald means that Afrika do know about this, and they're going to rotate up very quickly.
Yeah, Noshim trying to force this. They want to get a big objective back. And let's see, no cannon barrage right now.
Arrow?
The arrow is coming in, and it's going to hit Gory right in the front, but here's the slicing Maelstrom, gets rooted down immediately. Vanguard's Edge, though, and a big wombo comes in from Noshim. The turn is huge. Lots of low health bars, though, as Keen is running straight at them. Maybe a little bit too aggressive here, but he's baiting them into Leo. And Leo and Fly together are kiting everybody down, and nobody's got any health anymore, so Noshim not able to get away from this one as Gory will go down. Thankfully, they got the Rift Herald because they didn't get much else.
They certainly did not. And this is really a tough comp to fight against when you start to get low health bars, because Ashe is going to guarantee that your escape is basically impossible with her slows. So this is a great turn when you do see this fight, you know, happen here. The arrow comes through, and then Gory, there's not enough damage to finish him off. Rich does end up setting up the slicing maelstrom here. Look at Peanut's turn. Like, the ult is fantastic, but everybody's so low now that you're really hard-pressed to actually continue the fight. And yes, Keen does kind of face plant into this fight, but it doesn't matter because he baited everybody in, and the Ashe slows come through, yeah. So it ends up being, you know, a fairly even trade, but what's important is that Noshim do get the Rift Herald, and that's going to be a lot of extra gold. Where they use it is a little bit up in the air right now, because I think Aphelios is the one who could benefit the most from it right now, but it's not going to be easy to actually set that up on the map.
Yeah. It's hard when you get that objective, but you don't have any control anywhere, because it's like, well, we haven't gotten a lot of plates, so we can't potentially push for First Blood turret. We don't have a lot of vision, so potential for counterplay is pretty big. It's you know, it's good you got that objective, but then again, you got to follow up with something off of the back of that, and it's definitely not the top lane, unless they want to do a big rotation up there, but Realm Warp available, Fly's going to have teleport, Keen can have teleport back into the fight. It's rough, and anywhere you try to fight now, the Gangplank from ahead has Cannon Barrage. This is not a enviable position for Nongshim right now.
Yeah, no, it's not great, and with the lack of opportunities you have, it makes us feel even more frustrated in a situation like this too, because you're falling behind early. You know, your comp is obviously better from ahead, especially Peanut is really going to want to have, you know, a pretty stable early game to kind of start to get advantages, but he's actually kind of losing control of his jungle right now. And it's scary because if you use the Rift Herald and get shut down like we saw last time, you know, you commit in and then you end up getting collapsed on from another Realm Warp and end up losing players, then you lose control of the Drake with it. It's really scary to think about what could happen, especially after a game like game number 1. Your mentality is a little bit under duress here. It will just group up for the Drake without using the Rift Herald, but it's not going to be a free take.
Yeah, I don't know about this. Cannon Barrage available, and they're getting corralled in, but at the end of the day, it is just a Cloud Drake, and it looks like Afrika don't want to force anything. They have so much pressure in the top lane right now with Keen. They just say, okay, and let's go ahead and take it.
It's a solo Cloud Drake, so it's important in that it would have pushed them closer to Soul Point, but don't need it in isolation as yet.
Some target practice.
Sure.
Going back to the targets rather than the trundles, I guess, after this one.
He was using the Wiimote when he was doing that. He had motion controls on. He's going to have to disable that.
Yeah. Good he figured it out early on in the game, right?
Yeah. Just got to open your pause screen real quick.
Switch to a mouse, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the top pressure they have is not going to lead to a huge advantage, but the volatility of this game for Afrika is it really opens up if you lose a fight. Like, you kind of flip your lead instantly on a Cloud Drake when you could just stay ahead and be fine. So we'll be dropped in the mid lane. And there's already a big rotation to deal with it.
Yeah. This is the thing. I mean, Fly saw this coming for about 15 seconds, right? So they know when this is going to be dropped. They know the timer on it, and they're here and ready. The most this is going to get, unless they pick someone off, is 2 plates.
Yeah. Not to mention that, you know, Rich, he has to walk down to help pressure this because Keen has Barrage and Teleport, so Rich was out of lane. Doesn't do anything to support the push, unfortunately, but he has to be there. It's kind of a requirement because if he's top, then he could just get out-rotated, so that ends up getting an extra plate over to Afrika. So while Nongshim get 2 plates, Afrika at least trade back 1, still maintain a pretty massive lead. Not the over 1,000 they had before, but it's still pretty close. And I mean, look at this Gangplank lead. 1,500 gold for Keen already. And it's only going to get worse from here.
It's so gigantic. I mean, it's pretty much more than half of a big item at this point in time. And yeah, he interrupted his build. He went for a Hex Drinker first, but when you're up against Kennen and Diana, if you don't die in your Gangplank, you're going to end up doing more damage anyway. So you get the survivability. You're able to survive the Wombo combo, and then you turn things around with gigantic barrels with your eventual items that you'll pick up, and it's not going to be a fun time for Nongshim.
When they already have, you know, dove him once, and he was able to survive and be fine, they punished there with a Realm Warp. You know, okay, well, I should be aware that this is a possibility, and of course he's playing Gangplank into Cannon. He knows how this works, but it guarantees that you can both continue to punish the enemy laner while also being safe and having the potential to survive long enough to maybe have another Fly teleport come in and trade a kill. So it feels safe in one way, but it's oppressive in another, actually, this build.
Yeah.
Keen.
Oh, it's definitely the right choice. Definitely like it. And one thing to mention while we have a little bit of a lull in the action, Afrika, if they lose here in this series, they will not have any chance to make Worlds. They will not have enough points, enough championship points in the LCK. They will be out, and they will be out of the LCK playoffs as well if they lose, obviously. If they win, then they absolutely do make it into the gauntlet. So this is do or die for them and their LCK chances for playoffs, but also for Worlds. They need this win. And they're playing like it. This is some of the cleanest play we've seen from Afrika, as Nongshim With that pillar, they're getting a lot of value here, trying to burst down Gory, but he's got that W rolling, and he stays alive for an incredibly long amount of time, but he has to get away, as they will pick off Kellen, or Lahans rather, but that is it, as Rich is on the backside. Dread, though, going straight to the Aphelios. Fly is able to pick him off at least. As you can see, Peanut is desperate to get something going, but nothing will happen for Nongshim, as Leo now going 1v2. He still has the shield bow, and that is going to be a huge fight win again here for Freaka.
It's going to be a turret here to the top lane, maybe even more. They could drop the Herald almost straight away if they want to. They have so much control over the map right now, and this is great front-to-back team fighting here for Freaka with a comp that's excelling at that style of play. Skeen will eat a turret shot, but we'll be okay. And I gotta say, this is really starting to feel like Nongshim mentally are falling apart, which is not something I thought I'd be saying going into this best of 5, especially considering how many tough opponents they crushed and how clean they looked throughout the entirety of this season. At first, it looked like Gen.G was going to be the most consistent team. I think that actually became Nongshim as time went on. But this comp is such a tanky front line. So yeah, you put up the pillar here, but then you don't have great engage options. And look at the collapse here onto Gory. Meanwhile, Rich is just not even here.
He's fighting with Keen.
Yeah, if he is actually able to set up for a Slicing Maelstrom in this moment, it's great, but he can't. And then Peanut flashes this to try to look for a kill. Hexdrinker value is actually insane. Like, he tries to kill Keen here, and he just walks away. Yeah. And then, like, Leo's had a sleeper series so far. The guy's positioned where he needs to be. His slows are so incredible in this type of fight. I think it gets way harder before it gets easier as Nongshim right now in this game. And I would almost say that, like, this is an nearly unwinnable game for Nongshim if things continue like this.
It just feels like a little bit of a collapse, as you're saying, you know, and that pressure is beginning to get to them. Peanut has been so good at calming this team down in awkward situations when they're under pressure, when they're behind. But unfortunately, so far in the series, we haven't seen much. And I'm not saying it's Peanut's fault, but from the team as a whole, not really able to get things going. And Afrika, they've reached the next level. They're peaking right when they need to.
Yeah.
This is the perfect time to be at your best form all season.
It's the exact opposite we saw from, you know, DRX last season. It feels like, you know, felt like DRX. A lot of people were like, "Wow, this is a big overperformance," but they lose in playoffs, and it felt really tragic. But a lot of people were saying, "Well, DRX very weak at the end of regular season. You know, they're one of our weakest playoff teams." Afrika, people were saying that about them. And there people were shocked they were going to make playoffs, and then the very end of regular season they impress. Is Dread, yeah, really deep.
I think they actually easily could have dove him, but they didn't have vision on him. And there was options for double teleport to the bottom side. As now Fly, big Everfrost, but there's still a lot of pressure on him. The damage not quite there. Peanut desperate, but the Realm Warp gets him to safety. See you later. One-way ticket out of the river, and he will be totally fine.
Yeah. Now everyone on Nongshim is extremely low. I mean, not extremely low, but fairly low, and can actually continue to push the issue. We'll lose control over the Drake pick for the time being. And yeah, this is a composition that Nongshim are running that is once again based on tempo. And when you lose control of the top lane so early, that's been the biggest issue here in both games. Is the pressure that Keen has been putting off is really limited Peanut's options. He's not able to be aggressive up there. This time, after one failure, they just dropped it. They were like, we're not going top anymore. As we watch this setup here, the arrow is so clutch, and he just gets to Everfrost and teleport out. He's like, I'm getting out of here, I'm going to live, and that he did.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, if he didn't teleport all his teammates out, they may have been able to retaliate, right? As, speaking of which, here's Duckdom, huge Gravitum Moonlight Vigil, but it's still, the damage isn't there as Dread is going to find that backline. He's so tanky, they're all putting damage into this Sejuani and nobody can kill him, as now Gory is desperate to get somebody, gets the one kill onto the Ashe, but look at everybody else on Nongshim is zoned away, as they will not even be able to pick up Dread. At the same time, though, it's a 1-for-1. Rich getting some damage up on the top side, at least.
Yeah, but they're going to push the same sort of damage on the bottom side themselves. Keen is going to stay down here and continue the push for a moment. At the top side, you see, looks like Dread was considering going over there. They're just going to send a teleport of Fly up to deal with this. There's no response, unfortunately. No teleports available for Nongshim to clean up the bot push, so this doesn't end up actually really being a favorable trade. And this is the first time a fight looks clean for Nongshim, right? The Moonlight Vigil engager with grabbing him is massive because you get the double root. But Leo is still fine here. Lehens tanks so much, and he does so much damage that Dread feels very confident that he can actually come over here and turn. The problem is that Fly doesn't get here until a little bit too late. But when this fight is basically perfectly started for Nongshim, like the best fight you could ask for, and it still kind of goes awry, you could really see the state of the game. Like, Gory is unable to get out of here. And if that's the best you can hope for right now, I've got bad news, you know, for how this comp is going to work, because there's so much disengage, there's so much peel. I think Nongshim really need to draft a different style here, because Peanut carrying the game has worked for them a lot of the time with these AP champions, the Diana and the Nidalee especially. But when you don't have the freedom to farm, you know, extremely well because your opponent is one of the most aggressive counter junglers in the LCK and Dread, your top lane where you wanted to be aggressive has collapsed and fallen apart because that's your weakest matchup across the game. You have to draft differently, I think. And I think that they really are going to have to adapt going to the third game, even if they win this, even if they have a miracle comeback. I think that Afrika are really putting it to them in terms of shutting down this style of play. The Sejuani pick is this insanely cool adaptation that Afrika have brought to this best of 5. And Nongshim just don't seem to be ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, a lot of damage coming out here. Even the Cannon Barrage
Bye-bye.
going on in, and Fly just nukes him down. He was 4-0-3. Now he's got 5 kills on the rise. And I don't know anybody that can stop him. Rich basically doesn't exist in this game right now. It's pretty rough for the solo laners of Nongshim. They have no way to really be proactive or get anything done. And Afrika have total control.
What Dread can do in this game, the same way he did last game, is look at all these control wards on the map. He can just walk forward and clear wards. They can place deep warding. And Nongshim can't do the same. Like, as Peanut, you can't really safely clear wards or place deep wards because if there's a big rotation with the teleport advantage that Afrika has had pretty much this entire time, or Realm Warp, you get punished, you're on the wrong side of the map, and then Afrika gets an objective. But because they have so much vision, as Rich, you don't have the ability to even flank in later team fights. As you watch this, I mean, it's just incredible communication. I mean, it's a pretty simple kill, and Rich isn't even really overextended, but don't have vision of that brush, and Everfrost is pretty good, plus Cannon Barrage. Yeah, there's communication there between, you know, the solo laners to make that happen.
Absolutely. And when you're playing into a comp like this, basically everybody who's not the AD carry has to go Merc Treads, and it's rough because, yes, Fly is very fed, but that damage profile we talked about makes it even more annoying. You pick up that you're not able to deal with the gangplank up at the top side. You're not able to deal with the Ashe and the millions of auto attacks that are going to be coming out. It's just another piece of the puzzle, just a little one, but everything stacks on each other. And now, with all that vision control and CC, they're looking for more ganks. They're looking for Gory here. Pressure into the enemy jungle.
Yeah, Fly could have collapsed in there if they do find him. He actually decides to stop his back, but he's on a ward. And danger ping is coming down as well. Like, Gory, stay away. This game is just so easy for Afrika now to pull off. Like, you just position your carries well, and it's very difficult to lose. And, like, Rich doesn't have enough warding to flank teleport in this upcoming fight, which will be... It's in 3 minutes, but it will be Mountain Soul into this comp. Like, I can't imagine how things could be worse, really, at this stage in time.
Yeah, it's very true. Because you already have tanking Embers, and they're just going to get even more value out of those Drakes. As here we go, the engage comes in, that arrow going to hit the cannon, and Rich will barely survive, but he has to flash. And this is before the fight even really broke out, okay? Afrika, they commit some cooldowns, yes. But at the end of the day, if you're easily going to be able to push the enemy team away just like that, it's still a nice little win.
Yeah, and Fly is free farming top, then you can just back here. There's no objective that you lose after these ults go down. Most of these ults on relatively low cooldown as well that you do commit. So it's actually totally fine. Now this is kind of cool. I like this because you know that there's no wards in here. You were able to verify that.
Well, they saw Peanut. He had to clear one of those control wards, but Dread, it's going to take him a little while to come on over here, but they have teleports ready to go. Somebody teleported up to the wave. As they're looking for a little bit of a flank, Nongshim commit heavy onto this one, and here comes Dread. He's not going to be able to get the smite, though, but they kill Rich before the fight even begins. Big Moonfall comes in, though. The wombo combo from Nongshim. Is it enough? Is the question. Duckdom is going crazy. It does so many carries of Afrika, and they find the wombo in that fight, and they turn it immediately onto Afrika.
Fantastic play here from Nongshim. You clear the wards, you have enough vision advantage, you know the timing of these backs is coming through for Afrika, and you know you have those ult advantages that we just talked about. Those things put together, the vision that you have there means that you can actually go for this play, and you do still have a great team fighting composition, even from behind, if you can set up the combo when you have a desperate engage. And this goes wrong for Afrika because they don't get to play their game. Dread has to go over the wall here to look for a steal. You don't really have that sort of phalanx setup that we've seen from Afrika in every single fight. You mentioned Keen teleporting to the top of the fight. Means he's trying to set up barrels here, but he does very little until he can actually close the gap here. And look at this combo. Moonlight Vigil Moonfall. It's a full moon tonight. Nongshim are going to be able to take the fight. They bring themselves back to this game, and for the first time in forever, they will be able to take map control.
It's crazy that just like that, I mean, they get the Baron. This makes this an even game for now. Still, Afrika are on soul point. They still have extremely fed carries, but the swing back, I mean, look at that gold difference graph. That's about 5,000 gold that just got shored up in one play. And, I mean, the amount of chakram damage and what Duckdom was able to do in terms of his positioning after his team was able to set up that play, it's so dangerous. And you can begin to see glimpses of what this comp is able to do that we just have not seen at all in the series.
And it's also a look behind the curtain of recent Afrika form to old Afrika in terms of desperately reacting to this not being thorough on vision control, because you could have actually looked to try to clear some of that vision out on your way out when they did decide to back as Fly.
Okay, there's a one-on-one. We got Leona around, but a little bit too slow, and Gory's full health just 1v1s him down. Fly not ready for that one.
Yeah, very greedy here. You know, his side laning so far has been pretty easy to pull off because, you know, they've been so ahead, and he has had so much other pressure on the map to keep himself safe. But doing this into a Baron buff your way out there, you're going to get punished. The rotation is swift, and that's one of your carries down as Afrika. When this Mountain Drake is up, Nongshim are going to be able to take this, you know, essentially for free because nobody can come and contest. You've got to deal with the mid wave. And these are the kinds of moments we talked about, and I felt bad about saying after we had two such great games from Afrika, the second one still ongoing, but Afrika do make mistakes like this, where they don't control vision of objectives right before somebody sneaks one, or Fly gets caught, right? These are like things that you accept to be true in the late game for Afrika, and this is the first time Fly gets caught this series, just out very greedy. Like, where are you at? No teammates anywhere. You know, you have Realm Warp, so as Ryze, sometimes you can get away with that. But, I mean, he was like, he could touch the turret with his hand. He was so close to it. That's how far up he was.
Well, he had Lens there, but the Leona, I don't even think she would have been able to do much. Maybe exhaust, but maybe a little bit of miscommunication coming through, not able to help out there and Fly, assuming that that would help a little bit more than it actually would have. As now, Nongshim, you could see the confidence behind them. Cannon Barrage used just to clear a wave. And this is a totally different game we're on now.
Oh,
Nongshim in the lead. This is feeling more like old Nongshim. Generally, they don't get pummeled as hard in the early game, but, you know, they're back here when it matters.
And Duckdom's on his Aphelios. You know what that means. Peanut's on his Diana. He's got items. Watch out, Afrika. You've got to play this one very passively here. The arrow going to connect.
Okay, they have a lot of stuff to throw in, but look at the damage, and the Moonfall follow-up is gigantic, and now we have going forward is Nongshim. They might have just won the game off of this. They don't quite have a wave, but that is still a massive team fight that they take.
4 dead, and all off of the attempt to kill Rich. Leo tosses in the arrow, and the idea is we can blow up this cannon, and if we can get that kill, maybe we can actually take the fight, because you can't collapse in. Oh, Lehens is going to be the 5th to fall.
He's trying desperately to stop the wave, but he can't.
And if you get the pick onto Rich, you know, that's how you can actually collapse as Afrika, because Rich is the perfect collapse deterrent with this push, because the Slicing Maelstrom just stops you from going in. It's a really nice setup there with the arrow and the Sejuani ult, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost you.
They're
going to end it.
for it. Dread is here, though, and Leo is as well. Lehens
is also here, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, he stopped the 2 ranged minions. But yeah, it's Nongshim basically choosing safety over a potential flip over the Nexus.
Watch
That's fair.
Look at where Rich is. His positioning is very risky and greedy. And if you can blow up the cannon here, then you can actually look to the fight. But look at the Moonlight Vigil. And then you had just follow up Moonfall. It's too much damage. Cannon ult here is not as great as it necessarily could have been, but the fight's over before Rich presses R. So the idea was good for Afrika, but it was so risky because of the damage output and the combo potential there.
Yeah, if you have something like a Thresh or someone who can like hook after an arrow, something like that, I feel like it could have gone a little bit better, pull in the cannon. But your range damage is basically Leo and kind of Fly, but you can't really get close enough at that point in time, otherwise you get turned on just like we just saw. So you can't really go for plays like that, even under your own turret. And I think Afrika, now they know just how far behind they are. And it's crazy because it is only 3,000 damage, but at this point they haven't proven that they've been able to shut down Duckdom at all.
Yeah. No, it's insane what he's going to be able to do potentially. And once again, Nongshim have this vision control over the Baron pit. Afrika have to be so much more careful this time about how they approach. At least this time they know about it and aren't going to be just looking to put a Sejuani over a wall. They can actually slowly move forward here and look to front to back this.
Yeah.
I say slowly, but it's going to have to be a little bit faster.
Yeah, Duckdom's getting in there. He has the Crescendum, and he is not stopping for anyone. The Pillar forces Dread to go backwards, and now the smite is not exact, but it doesn't matter because there was no threat from the enemy jungle.
Yeah, and Fly had to clear the bottom wave. If he doesn't deal with that, that starts getting on top of the Nexus turrets. He had teleport, but as soon as he showed himself there on bot, they were like, yep, no, we should commit to this. We don't even have to turn with 5v4. There's no way Afrika can engage. That is one of the things about Afrika's comp, is even though it has Arrow and Sejuani ult combos with the Cannon Barrage and Solar Flare, you don't really walk towards Nongshim's comp. Like, Nongshim would love for you to do that. So even though you have a lot of tools, like we saw attempted to pick Rich with, if you actually come in, Nongshim will just absolutely destroy you. So when you're behind positionally, like Afrika were, both times on the Baron pit, they just can't walk towards it. They can't take that fight. Nongshim abusing the strengths of their composition here in the late game. Now he's going to sit on these Baron waves and try to threaten a second inhibitor, and then maybe even the game with it. Peanut going to get this Drake.
He's just chilling out with the Drake. I guess he'll have some help from Duckdom. It'll be nice to get that to spawn as soon as possible. You don't want to deal with 6-item Gangplank and Rise anyway, even though you do have some really nice scaling on your own side.
And they've got good wave clear Afrika do to kind of hold off this pressure. It's going to be, as long as they're within their base, they should be able to stave this off. Nongshim are not going to be able to win off of minions. They will still have to fight. But with that extra Mountain Drake, so much easier.
Oh and you can see the power of barrels, the power of Calibrum. There's a lot of poke coming in here from both teams. Afrika doing a decent job of surviving, but their base is not. And that's really the issue. Second inhibitor going to go down here.
Peanut has his ult. You've got to respect it. But at some point, Afrika have to do something. They have to engage. They have to look for a pick on the Rich again. Something, anything.
Hey, they're going to find Peanut, but the Zhonya's is good enough. And the Cannon Barrage, not enough damage either. And Rich is going to find the angle on the right side. He gets it done. As the Moonfall now just for the cherry on top. And Nongshim proved that no matter how far behind or what is happening in the game, they can and will make a comeback. And here we go. We got our series tied at 1.
And again, a little bit of a glimpse at the Afrika that can make those small but critical mistakes in the post-25, post-30-minute world. One of our analysts last season in spring was calling Afrika, like they were a 25-minute team or something like that. Once you get to that point in the game, like they just can't function. And Leo, I think, is a big change that has made them look better in the late game because his positioning has overall been better than Bang's from what we saw in spring. And it's a team that, especially in Game 1, as we saw, but in the last series we saw from them, the last few in regular season, they have looked better at taking their advantages to push through to big win conditions. But this game took a big turn when Afrika used ultimates to look for a pick, got a flash, and then decided to back without thoroughly confirming vision on the Baron. They all went back, Nongshim saw this tiny window, cleared the last ward, looked for a Baron, and then Afrika were not willing to let that Baron go. They committed anyways into a team fight composition that loves for you to run at them. Like, Nongshim absolutely love those types of turns. And in those two instances, the game flips on its head. Nongshim play out the following team fight well. Suddenly we have a tied series on our hands.
Peanut's got his hands on the controls. He's showing the team what's up, and he even like waves off the ref. He's like, not now, not now. We have some work to do. And you know what? I mean, Afrika make a mistake, but Nongshim to have the mental fortitude just to stick in the game and the presence of mind to identify that tiny sliver, the timing for them to come in there and make that play happen was, it was basically picture perfect. And once again, you know, Peanut hasn't been having the greatest series, but at least calls are made in the late stages of the game by Nongshim that always seem to work out.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the big things they've upgraded from Spring with is making good calls, making decisive calls. One of the reasons why, regardless of playoff results, if we send this team to Worlds, I feel pretty confident about how they're going to do internationally because they are so decisive when it matters most, even from behind.
Well, definitely a good look to get the win on the board, but very curious to see how the rest of the series is going to turn out. We got a best of 3 for the rest of it, guys. Join us for Game 3 after the break.